Hello and welcome to the Happy PharmD podcast. With me today, I'm joined by the whirlwind of a pharmacist, Dr. Karine Wong, and she shares her story and journey going from all over the place in pharmacy. We talk a little bit about her mantras that have led her to so many new and interesting opportunities, how she has started up her own treat company. She makes food, how she got into clinical work, how she has started so many different gigs and businesses. And I think you should walk away feeling a little bit inspired, a little bit curious about what problems you could be solving in the world and how to get a little bit more fulfillment and joy in your pharmacy life. So with that, let's jump in. Karine, thanks for hanging out with me.
Hi, good morning, Alex.
Just before we officially hit the record button, we were talking about all the different things that you do. And like many other pharmacists, I want to give you a compliment. You mentioned it's hard to talk about all these things that you do. But I'm going to put it out there right now, and I would love for you to accept it. You genuinely have a really interesting career path. And I think there's a lot for people to learn from what you've done in your life.
Okay. Well, I will take that to heart.
That's about the response I expected.
I hear you. I'll try. Yeah.
Excuse me. So you have a clinical pharmacist background career. You are a professor on the side. And you also have your own business where you're making treats. I talked with you, I believe, like a couple of months ago. I got sick, holidays happened, but I felt like we really hit it off in that first conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask you about, for you, in your journey up to this point, what do you feel like has been maybe your guiding star, the thing that has led you from opportunity to opportunity?
The guiding star is mantras. I have my own set of rules that I follow, I abide by. So whenever there's a crossroads in my life or conflicts, like what should I do? What should I do? Instead of relying on a bunch of advisors or my husband or best friends to tell me what to do, they may not have their best interest at heart. They're thinking about themselves. So I come up with a set of rules that I can live with, I believe in, and that's always led me down the right pathway. Like the first rule, for example, is if you want to do it right, do it yourself. One of the things that got me burnt out at hospital setting got me burnt out in the hospital was because people were not following the protocols and policies I set up. And I ended up doing it myself. I would have a code blue protocol and no one would go. So I had to go myself. Or if it did go, they would go really slow or take their time and didn't do it right. I was just like, how hard is it to go to code blue? Apparently very hard. So they were lazy. They didn't really love their job and they didn't care about the patients like the way I care about them. So go back to rule one. If you want to do it right, do it yourself. So I was always that girl that took the foresight to move forward, to execute, do it right. Just, for example, another one was I noticed that my pharmacist director has a hard time logging in pharmacist interventions because there's so much to do. And he was getting so stressed out, creating data for the P&T meeting. And I thought to myself, my God, you've got a gap here and no one volunteered to do it. So rule number 2, help out when you can. If you couldn't do it, do it. I was as a staff pharmacist. I had time. I wasn't going to pull out dates. I was like, I don't want to do that, but I could do this. And he was more than happy to give me boxes of documentation and medical records of 3 months worth of pharmacist interventions that have never been logged in. OMG, that's data that could mean someone's raise, could mean the betterment of better policies, procedures for our pharmacy. So I did that. I was that girl that volunteered to do that horrible big report, and that propelled me to land the job above me. So I was promoted to be the clinical manager. Ta-da! So they landed me a position where at that time didn't exist. And I said, what do I do as a clinical manager? And they said, oh, no, figure it out yourself. Okay. Well, back then, money was an issue. So one of my mentors said, if you can reduce cost of stay per patient, that's gold. Oh my gosh. So I did. So everything I did was pretty much reduce the length of stay in the hospital, but also to reduce the cost per day. So I think I actually had the corporate monitor me for 3 months and 6 months, and they were able to show at the end of 6 months, Karine reduced the patient cost of stay by like $5. Now that's our actual cost. That's not a lot, but in terms of insurance payment reimbursement, that was huge. That was huge. So they're billing for $100,000, but we were getting more in return compensation, and the actual cost of goods was a lot less. So it's basically in percentages, I reduced the cost of stay by, I think it was like 20%. And that was significant enough because having a pharmacist on the team, working with doctors, telling them not to order Zyvox, let's order something a little more tame like Vanco or something more cost effective. And I never say cheap. I never ever say like, I'm the girl that's going to get a cheaper drug. I'd say the better drug, And so we always had like interns and residents who didn't like 80% of the prescribing. So it's really easy for me, being similar age, similar generation, to relate to them and say, hey, can you order perhaps instead of like the azithromycin, let's order the, clarithromycin said PO. It's just more, it's the same efficacy, I guess. And they go, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Very easy to work with, numbers got down. So that goes, my third mantra was, again, go to where you're needed. If you see a deficit, jump right in, help that problem. So cost reduction was a big thing back then. And that's what propelled me to where I am. It just kept going higher and higher. Like I just got more opportunities because I was that girl that saw problems and I had the time to fix it. And I was the girl to do it. I wasn't going to delegate to someone else unless I felt that they could do it well. So mantras.
Yeah, well, I can see how those beliefs led you to differing actions than I think what most people feel like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to be involved. I remember the transition I had from residency to real job and kind of getting hit in the face with like, oh, wow, no one here seems as excited as I am to do the work. And that, unfortunately for me, I didn't believe in those mantras that you shared at the time, and the wind really was cut out of my sails. But knowing what you've gone through, like, I'm not surprised at all that you're a professor, and you have a business and you're doing clinical work. So it sounds like each mantra has really led from one thing to the next. So I'm curious about, actually, let me see if I can fill in the skeleton of the story here. Sure. I'm guessing your business, My Guiltless Treats, was about a problem that you had, or maybe a loved one or a close friend who like was on a diet or taking some sort of, dietary measures and couldn't find good tasting treats. Because I've had keto bars and holy cow, are those hot garbage. They're nasty. My wife went keto for a while, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
I did keto for like a minute. Like I had one keto shake, and I was like, "I can't." And everyone's like, "Come on, keep going." I can't get past the first cup. So I was like, "We're done. That's so."
My friend Corey Jinks would have a thing to say about that, but I'm guessing that you had a problem, or someone you loved had a problem, and you're like, "Well, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to figure this out." Is that what happened as well?
You are amazing psychic. You're correct.
No, you told me, you gave me the mantras, and I'm just kind of like putting the pieces together.
Okay. To be fair, though, most entrepreneurs, small business owners have started a company based on that that theme, someone they love had this problem. So if you look at the products now in the shelf, especially at Whole Foods and Sprouts, they were all like, organic, non-GMO, vegan, blah, 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 blah. That's because their child or mom or whatever had some horrible, dietary problem. And that's what they do, fit the bill. My problem was actually my patients. They weren't a loved one. It was actually like hospital patients who were like frustrated with their diagnosis of diabetes, and they get the diabetic package, right? The glucometer with the strips and the insulin, and they're like, okay, senorita, but what do I eat? And I was like, dietary just saw you. What did they tell you? Senorita, they say eat kale, kiwa, whole grain. We don't eat that. I was like, oh, you know what? Jose was right. I mean, it is true. Most of the diabetics, as you know, like 1/3 of the population are going to be diagnosed with diabetes. And it's mostly food related. Some are genetic, right? But, type 2 is food driven. And if you look at every culture, there is a carb monster. Like everyone's got like the rice or like the Mexican bread or the, horchata, or, like every single culture has a carb-based diabetic driving food commodity. And so, I left that counseling session thinking, oh my gosh, he's right. We can give him all the Lantus in the world and his A1C will still be in double digits, and there's nothing that we can do. So it's like going to be one problem after another. First the neuropathy, then the amputation, then the blindness, It's going to be a horrible effect. And all we're doing is just like adding more insulin, more metformin, more SLGP2 inhibitors and blah, blah, blah. It's a vicious cycle. So, I actually took maternity leave, and I should have been like home relaxing, breastfeeding, being the mother of my children. But I was doing a couple things. I actually wrote a book, and I read an app, and I was like, well, at 2:00 in the morning when you're breastfeeding, you got some time, right? So I was like banging away at the computer, taking care of my children, and after a while, well, but what you do if you're breastfeeding at 2:00 in the morning, you'd be doing this, okay? You'd be thinking outside the box. But 100%. Jose always came back to me because that was still a problem, even at the late 2008, 2010, And as you said, things in the market were keto. They were just not great tasting foods, or they were like medicinal, like Lucerna. Who's going to eat Lucerna? Willingly, right? So I created this idea, and I just needed some push. And so I met another mentor. He was an investment person who really liked the idea that I had. I actually had a partner, and together we just like, let's just test the water and see what happens with it. And it did really well. So being a pharmacist, I had a background of, like sterility, compounding, knowing about the shelf life and all that jazz. So I was able to do most of the administrative work by myself. All it takes is a little bit of reading, but you're on par with the FDA. You can read that stuff. It's all good. So I think the only thing I did was just get product insurance, get some permits and insurance through the permits and licenses from the state board. Other than that, I was golden. And what makes me different from other vendors is that because we have the background, we don't need to add all that sugar to increase the shelf life. We don't need to add, sodium benzoate to increase the shelf life. Those are things that are banned in Whole Foods, and they're probably not the best thing for our bodies. That's why they're banned. So I think that makes me a little bit more credible, and I sell more because they could taste the product. It's not keto. It's delicious. It's a dessert, but anyone can have it.
I think. For some people, they're going to be wondering some questions like, what is a day in the life look like? But for anyone listening who's like maybe inspired by this, here's the path that she just told you that you have to copy. So believe those mantras that we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Solve problems, show up, don't delegate, do the work, and have a baby. And then that's how you make a business.
The baby's optional. Baby's optional.
Actually, you're right. Yeah, the baby is optional.
I guess I would say that a day of my life is very busy. Like during COVID, I was extremely bored. I am a high risk patient myself, so I could not go into a hospital, and they cut my hours. And you know what? Most people have been like, woohoo, can't work at a job I hate, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? Who's suffering here? It's the students. The students weren't able to go into the hospital campus because of liability. So for 2 years, you have third and fourth year students not able to complete their internal medicine rotations or electives, and they're going to graduate and be a pharmacist in like 6 months. OMG. So again, I saw a problem, and I held Zoom classes for the schools. I had like 4 schools in my pocket that were willing to take me on board as a, virtual preceptor. Yeah. And we did code blue runs, we did case studies, we did presentations, we did everything you would normally do in a hospital via Zoom.
Of course.
And
so that's how you became a professor, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I became an associate adjunct for like 4 schools, and now UCI is looking at me and they're like, "Can you help us out? Bring it on!" So my day in life, yeah, correct. I think by nature we're all problem solvers, but I'm a little bit different. I'm also a problem solver / gambler. So I'm a little bit of a risk taker, hence the business. You got to have both if you want to be an entrepreneur. But if you are not a gambler or a risk taker, that's okay. That's okay. That just means that you're going to be pretty much pragmatic in your life. But in your career, you can be a problem solver. And the higher ups will see that and eventually promote you and move you away from the clinical duties and maybe more into administrative duties and other opportunities that you would never have fathomed had you not spoken up and been more willing to do stuff. So I think the goal here is, it's the problem, do it, fix it.
It's a really big mindset shift. Well, I think for really 2 things for people. I wholeheartedly agree. The more problems you solve in life, the more people you help, the more you make money, the more you get paid, the more opportunity, and your life. And I think my life, even though I haven't shared anything right now,
we know your life.
But I think it's evidence of that. The more problems you solve, the more opportunity. So, since that's true, I think what I'm curious about. Oh, no. A point that I wanted to make was the mindset shifts that need to happen, because in the workplace, the mentality that I feel like a lot of people have is either there's a lot of problems here and no one wants to hear my ideas, right? Where a lot of people have ideas on how to solve problems. And so rather than being in a supportive environment to give those, they just keep them to themselves. They just shut up or complain, and don't really change the situation. And I feel like that's a hindrance for a lot of people. But sometimes that mindset can last so long that you really don't go out in the world anymore trying to help people or solve problems. It's just, it is what it is. And I think at the heart of it, what is the real problem to me feels like it's a growth versus a fixed mindset. You're familiar with the topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really have a solution for that other than we teach this stuff really early to help people kind of maintain that growth mindset into their early career so that they don't get like stuck in that rut of, well, this is what I do. This is who I am. I show up, I do my thing, then I go home and, so be it, whatever it is. I'm not sure how you teach that or and maintain it, but I think it's probably hanging out with people like you is a good start.
Always. I always think like the reason why people get in a fixed mindset is because it's the easy way out. It's like, it's so comfortable to clock in, clock out, right? Go home and play with their kids or fight with your husband, do whatever. Like, you have your own stuff to deal with, and you kind of, and you could tell. These are the same people that like quit the associations the minute they graduate. These are the same people that don't show up for events. They're the same people who don't even go into your podcast. They don't even go to like anything remotely pharmacy. They just use CMEs because it's free. It's in their little magazine, but they will never go to like an event, meet people, and they complain. These are like the haters, the complainers. And I've seen it all the time. It's like, well, what's your life like? Oh, I drive a Tesla. I have 2 kids. I have a husband. We don't talk. It's like, wow. It's just like, there's like a theme here, and they're miserable. I know, because they asked me for a job. I'm like, well, what's wrong with your job? You've been there forever. I know, but I'm so tired and bored. But I don't hire them because that attitude, you're going to take it with you to the next job and next job. And I will not deal with that. I needed to deal with people who are innovative, progressive, think outside the box. So yeah. And you can tell them all you want. They chosen their path. They're big boys, big girls. If they want to do fixed mindset, that's fine. But as young pharmacists and those who are like fresh out of the gate and you're feeling, oh my God, this is like not fun. It's not fun because it's not challenging. So to that end, you have to, find a problem, fix it. And if you, like you said, you make a point. What if the corporate says, nah, we won't do that. That sucks. Find out why it sucks. Tell me what's your concern. Tell me your background. Tell me what's the chokehold. Is it the money? Because just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's perfect. Maybe it needs to be refined. And there's a lot of things that young pharmacists don't think about before they open their mouth. They just go, well, why can't we just, hire a robotic person and do dispensing? Cost money. We only fill like 50 scripts a day. Like that. They don't think like that. They're just thinking utopian-like. So it's fair to ask your boss or the person that you're pitching to, tell me your exchange of ideas. What's an ideal solution to doing a medical intake, for example, within like 2 minutes, that kind of stuff,
And that would be such an eye-opening event for people because most people do not have a managerial or administrative perspective. I remember thinking that myself, thinking like, I've got a great idea here. I have a solution to a real problem that everyone in this clinic has. And yet, why don't you pay attention to me? Why don't you listen or hear me out? But it's a matter of perspective. They see things differently. They see the workflow differently. They have a much higher level view of the problems and the situations and how things interact. And sometimes when you have new ideas and fresh, you can come across as brash and you're a bulldozer and you don't know exactly what you're plowing over with your idea. What a great way to learn just by saying, I think I have something, but I want to know more about your perspective.
Correct. Yeah, it's kind of the best time to check your ego at the door and just say like, okay, I've been spending way too long counseling patients, taking time away from other patients. How can we streamline that? You shouldn't spend 30 minutes on the phone with a patient. It should be much more dialed down, not short, but brevet and succinct. So if you're yammering on about BTS or whatever, perhaps you should not socialize with the patient on the phone when you've a line out the door. I would say that there should be like a workflow process. That's what I would do if I saw technicians on the phone for too long or phone calls. You could tell there's always an audit log of how long each call is. So you can tell it should not be that long unless it's actually problematic, but it should not be long. So.
And I agree with your sentiment. We as a company, we've developed a recent assessment that is helping pharmacists identify what they find most fulfilling about pharmacy and kind of assess it. Then think about, well, where are those opportunities right now in your current company, in a different career path, in a different type of job. And one pharmacist shared with me that like he wants to go into the administrative route, the management route, project management. And he had an opportunity right in front of him to do something at his current company, but he didn't feel safe enough to provide recommendations to his administration because he felt like they were going to steal his idea. You said earlier something that I feel like is stopping so many people, myself included. And it's, I can't think of the author name, but there's a book out there simply called Ego is the Enemy. Ryan Levesque, maybe? No. Anyways, concept is really simple. We sometimes so easily get in our own way through our pride or the fear of someone taking our ideas, or being judged for them. I mean, Karine, I'm guessing you were different in college, but
wow, you're very smart.
Remember that student who was always raising their hand, right? And like they always had the right answer, and most people feel in the classroom setting like they don't want to be the dumb one. They don't want to raise their hand and say the wrong answer.
Actually, in class, I was the girl that didn't raise her hand. I was in the front row. And then whenever someone answered a question, I'd be like, you go, girl. That's how you go. That's how you answer that bad boy. I was very
And I
supportive
bet
of my
other
team.
people loathed you in the classroom. But hey, I mean, look at them now and look at where you're at. So,
Uh,
what is a day in the life like? Like you have 3 different jobs. I'm sure you're doing a bunch of other things. You're an author. Like, what is it that you actually do? Like, who's paying you to do all this weird and wacky stuff?
I've got revenues everywhere, but don't get me wrong, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm very happy. It's funny, my daughters call me the Asian Barbie. And I was like, should I be offended by that comment or not? And they're like, but mommy, Barbie does everything. She's a veterinarian, she's a doctor, she has a big house, she has Ken, and my husband's name is Ken too. So she's like, you're like Barbie, you do everything. And I said, well, I'm not white. I don't have that figure. But I appreciate the sentiment. She is right. I do a lot of things and I do them, and not all were successful. Trust me. I'm not like one to say like everything I did was like gold, no, but I did everything. If you ask me why I do this, because there was a need for it. So you asked me what I do. I am a marketing manager for a optometry office in Northridge. Why would I do that? Because the gal who's doing it doesn't know anything about Yelp, algorithms, hashtags, whatever. So I become that person that does all the posting, all the media exchange, and I do help schedule patients for exams. Been doing that for a couple of years to help this new entrepreneur get to where she needs to be. And so I try to pull back a little bit, but I'm doing such a great job. Okay, fine, I'll do it. And so I get free exams, I get a little like bad money. It's all good, but I'm helping another person out, and that only takes me like 10 minutes a month, and it's just easy because I can dial it down so easy. I am the pharmacy inspector, consultant for my husband's practice. He has a surgery area, so I go there and I pull out dates. And I make sure all the ketamine is separate from like the lotions and the fentanyls like in a lockbox. So I do that, and I check the protocols for like multi-use vials and whatnot because it's an outpatient clinic. So whenever they have accreditation, they ace it because they got Dr. Wong on board, and so it's an easy cake job. Again, I do that like an hour every quarter, easy. Okay. I made an app for pharmacy students because they were struggling to pass the board. Easy. I hired some dude in like Pakistan to help me code. I learned how to code. He helped me like translate to Apple Store, and now it's on iTunes. So yeah, it's like $5. Am I making lots of money? No, but it's hella fun to create questions that are helping students pass an NAPLEX. So yay, I do my Guiltless Treats again because there's always patients that can't have regular desserts because they're diabetic, A1C is triple digits or double digits, and then they have a celiac disease or dairy allergies, what have you. So, that's me. That's why I do it. I had the best story ever where I was doing a demo in a store where I'm a Costco girl. I'm like pitching my product, right? Hi, I'm Karine. Try my stuff. And this one lady came up to me and she's like, trying it. And she looks very melancholic. She's about to cry. And I'm like, okay, just have some pineapple panna cotta. You will love it. She takes it and she turns around and grabs like 4 or 5 of my products behind me. And she just grabs it and she starts crying. I said, I'm sorry. Are you okay? Like, did you like it? Is this your, because and she said, well, my husband, he has cancer and he's going through chemotherapy. So he's the source. I said, aphthous ulcers. You can't have anything that's acidic. So my products are extra pH base is 6.5. So it's not acidic. It's coconut cream based. So it's kind of like, it's going to soothe the sores. It has protein in it. So because he was cachectic, so that was going to be helpful for him. And he can't eat anything because every time he eats, he throws up. He's so nauseous. Zofran can't help him. And it's very sad for a caretaker, especially his wife, to see that. And he's just wasting away. So she was just thrilled beyond belief that there was a product that he can eat. And so she bought so many that day. And I cried inside too, because I realized that if I was not here, if I was going to be in the hospital again, doing PNT work for another, 2 or 3 years, there will be no one here for her to do this. So it's like, you can't hope, Conagra Foods or Nestle will come up with some great product like that. All the products are not meant, they're not mainstream. They're not meant for these patients who would value your product more. And so those are my patients, those are my customers, and they love it. They're my life source, I guess, and I'm happy to support them. Anyone can make panna cotta, anyone can make cookies. Anyone, you could do it too, Alex, if you had time, and you could probably sell fine. But if you had, 2-3 hours a day, would you just sell cookies? No, you're not a 12-year-old girl, right? You are a grown pharmacist that has so much wealth of information. You want to make something that is going to benefit the customer before become a patient. That's how I look at it.
Well, fun fact, a couple weekends ago, I actually helped my kids start up their cookie business. We went around the area and sold some cookies.
Yeah, but they did.
I helped quite a bit with the selling.
Yeah. That's good though. But yeah, my point is that you can sell anything. It's more like the goal, like who do you want to benefit? Someone who just likes a sweet tooth, or someone who has sweet tooth but has conditions where they can't enjoy it. So
I think my final question for you is, what do you think the Karine of 10 years from now wants to tell you in this moment?
In 10 years, will I be working? Yeah, probably will be working. I would probably tell myself to start that business. I actually have a couple more business ideas that I want to roll with. I know. I'm extremely busy. Like you keep asking me my daily life looks like. It's actually is pretty busy. I'm like thinking, am I busy? My husband always says you're always busy, and I'm thinking that's always been my life. I don't veg. I don't chill on the couch and watch TV. I don't know how to do that. So if you ever watch me, I'm either in the clinic, on the phone, in a computer, doing something. And even when I have a busy day, I will clock out or go to sleep around like 12 o'clock. And I still want to start my business idea. And it's going to be critical. I'm still in my head. So I always tell my students that if you ever want to be an entrepreneur, you have an idea, see a problem, find an item to fix it, and then kind of like, what's the word? Fix it, like edit it every day. If it keeps coming to your brain every day, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Well, I think we'll be waiting on a bated breath for this next thing to come out when it does. Karine, thank you so much for being with us on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a pleasure talking to you, Alex.
My favorite part about Karine is that she just can't stop. I didn't record everything that we said, and it was just so fascinating to hear about all of the things, all of the different things that Karine does. Now, and I think someone can listen to this podcast and maybe walk away feeling like, oh, I'm not doing nothing, or wow, I don't think I could ever do that. And I think Karine would tell you, yeah, it's been a journey. And I wouldn't want you to walk away from this feeling like comparison. As someone famously was once said, comparison is the thief of joy, and envy and jealousy can come from it. It's why I don't go on social media very much, honestly, and scroll through feeds, because it's easy to see how great someone's life is and how hard things are for you, or what you are missing out on. I don't like it. It's not fun. I don't like inviting that kind of emotion into my life. And when you hear Karine's story, I think some people may feel like, man, I wish I had just one of the opportunities that she talked about. It's not fair for you to do that to yourself. You're at where you're at right now. And maybe there are new and interesting opportunities coming your way, which is fan-freaking-tastic. Awesome. Go do those things. But I would encourage you to just take one small step forward. Find one problem that exists in the world and solve it. For you, for a friend, for a patient, for your company, and see where it could lead you. You never know what could happen by just going out and having fun solving problems for people. It literally is that simple. You don't have to have a game plan. It doesn't have to be like being a pharmacist where it's all figured out and you've got every step laid out. You don't need a business plan. You don't need an ultimate fail-safe strategy. You just need to find one person and help them and see if you love it. It could lead you to more of that kind of work and that kind of fulfillment. Well, I'm leaving this a little bit inspired, and I'm going to go out there and conquer in my own way. And I hope you do as well. So until we see you in the next episode, take care.